All right. So can everyone hear me okay? I'm thinking that's a yes. I'm thinking that's a positive. I'm thinking we're moving forward. I know I wish everyone a healthy and safe quarantine. I still know most of everybody is quarantined right now and locked away in their houses, and that's what everyone in the Constellix and DNS Made Easy staffs are. So I do wish you all the best and a healthy and safe experience going through this unprecedented time in history. So today, I'm really excited to be able to talk to everybody about multi-CDNs and what's the benefits and the advantages of multi-CDNs. It looks like we have a lot of people still joining us, so this is a great time to sit down and learn. A lot of people are home, and I'm hoping this gives you ability to learn what the advantages of multi-CDNs are, how the Constellix approach is different from others, and how we've been able to handle this now. Something we started probably about 5 years ago in concept, and we started launching it about a year ago, and now we're turning up 5 to 6 different companies probably every single week. And so that's going on now. You know, we got I know we're over 100. We're averaging 5 to 6 now, and due to the current COVID-19 crisis and everything else with the CDN outages that we've noticed, it's actually growing more in popularity. So let us start. What I want to first talk about is what is a CDN, the reasons that all organizations choose a CDN service. We're going to talk about that not all CDNs are created equal. We're going to talk about why a single CDN solution does cause problems. And we're going to talk about the best of breed solution, how to combine multiple CDNs, and why is it a smart choice? And then we're going to talk about other features that make it important to choose a multi-CDN management service that can actually dictate and move your traffic around based upon needs and requirements. So that is our agenda. If you have any questions at all throughout it, feel free to let me know, send me a quick question, and I'll make sure to answer it, or we have a staff that's helping me assist to go through this as well. So what I'm really curious right now is who your current DNS providers are. If you can let me know, is it currently Constellix? Is it DNS Made Easy? Is it both? Or did you choose someone else? Someone probably less performant, more expensive. Now, I won't go there. I still am curious to know now what everyone is using that is currently on our poll. And just so I can get a little bit of analysis and who our members are. And this will help me kind of dictate maybe a little bit how I'm going to talk about some of the services and everything. I am going to do a little bit of a show and tell, and so I will be doing that with the Constellix service. So for those of you that are just on DNS Made Easy, that'll be important to actually dictate and see the differences of some of the features. All right, I think that's enough time. Let's see what we have. So most everyone is on DNS Made Easy. We have some people doing Constellix, which is good. And we got some people using both, and there's a reason for that. And then we have some people doing neither. And maybe this would be a good choice for you to say, okay, maybe I want to either increase my DNS providers. I want to get secondary DNS with DNS Made Easy or Constellix. I want to increase my uptime, lower my costs, or maybe you just want to do this for informational purposes. So I'm hoping this webinar is helpful for everybody, and I want to hopefully answer any questions you have. Our staff, everyone here at DNS Made Easy and Constellix, we're here to help our users. We're here to help our clients. We're here to take the stress and burden off your plates. And if we're not doing that, then obviously we're not serving a need in the market. So we want to make sure we earn your business. So if there's ever anything you guys do need during the webinar, after the webinar, you let us know, and that's what we do. As you know, my name is Stephen Job. I've done several of these webinars. I'm the president and founder of DNS Made Easy and Constellix, and so I'm really excited to show you some of these great features that we have going out. So let us talk about why we're actually going to choose a CDN company. I was waiting for the right click. So CDN servers are an ability, first of all, they stand for content distribution network, right? And they allow servers to be distributed regionally and provide quicker access to the content and the end user, right? And this is going to be bringing the content closer to the end user. So if we had to think about it, if you're serving users geographically all around the world, data flows as fast as speed of light, right? Fiber optics. And if you're going to have users in Europe, if you're going to have users in Asia Pacific, and if you're going to have users in Oceania and in Africa, you want to make sure those users are getting that content as fast as possible, right? We want to bring that content closer to the end user. And this goes into what I usually call about CDNs, or the SPCs, right? And I usually talk about SPC with really any internet service provider that I purchase for our company. And I look at the SPCs as something that we also want to provide to our users when we're offering DNS services and providing value. So the first one is scalability, right? We want to provide a scalable system, right? We want to distribute the load of network traffic across multiple servers, right? That's one thing that CDN services do for you. They have a whole list of servers all around the world, and they're going to make it scalable. Your traffic demands increase, they should be scaling with you. The next one is, of course, performance. You're not going to choose to move somewhere if you're going to have a less performant system. Everybody on this phone call today is either an IT executive. I know people are on this phone call that are chief revenue officers, there's chief sales officers. We got people dedicated to marketing, people dedicated to technology. Overall, you want performance, right? You want to provide a way to bring content closer to end user, and it's essential to serve that global user base. And finally, cost. And this is with any service provider you should buy, right? If a CDN provider, they should be buying this data in bulk, right? When they buy data in bulk, they should be giving those savings to you. It should be actually cheaper to use a CDN provider than it is to serve your own content. And if that's not what's happening, you want to leave. You want to leave fast. And that's with any service. That's with our DNS services, right? If we're not providing value to you, if it's not, you're not saving money by outsourcing your DNS product to us and we're giving you immediate ROI, there's no reason to use any service. So when you're talking about CDNs, it's the same thing, right? It's the scalability, it's the performance, and it's the cost. If they're not providing you all three of those, you really want to get out. And so the next thing we want to talk about is why someone may choose a CDN. And these are the things we just talked about. You have performance, right? A lot of people we talk to in the industry, they talk about brands. They want to know, well, if company A uses this company, or if this big brand uses them, I'm going to use them as well. I'm not going to get fired because of these guys and these guys go down. I'm going to go down as well, but they went down and they're bigger than me. Probably not the best idea. I gave a webinar a couple months ago about multi-cloud infrastructure and multi-cloud scenarios, and talk about vendor lock-in. And it was all about how people, years ago would put everything under one box and one server, right? This is in the 90s and early 2000s. And then we started distributing those. And then when the cloud services came in, everyone started going to single cloud provider. And people started doing that with single CDN providers. And it's kind of like we're recreating the same problem we had before when we put everything underneath one server, where we're doing the same thing now with a single CDN provider. But you're just thinking of it differently because it's someone else's boxes now. You're thinking it's not your fault. It is your fault. You really shouldn't be vendor locking in. You shouldn't be tying to one provider anymore, right? Cost and ROI may not be the best savings when you're choosing one CDN as well, right? We'll talk about that. And a lot of times people talk about support in the user interface. If it looks good, it feels good, it's got to be a great fit. But in the end, when people are looking and they're making decisions about what CDN services they're using, they end up choosing just one. And so what I want to ask real quickly is how many people online right now are currently using a CDN service? This will give me a little more indication of the type of users we have. And I believe most are. You might not realize it, but even if you're using something on your website that's a shared library or something like that, you most definitely are probably going to be grabbing stuff from another CDN service or without even realizing it. But I guess if you had to think about, someone just asked, is this with my direct content or other data? I guess if you could think about this as being your actual data content that you're serving your users. What's unique about your company? What's unique about your service that you're offering? All right. Let me close this poll. Let me share the results. So 63% are using a CDN service, all right? 38% are not. Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. Now, of those that actually are using a CDN service, let me ask you one more question. Has your CDN provider ever had an outage? So of the 63 of you, let me know, has your CDN provider had an outage? And if you let me know the CDN services, it'll tell me the last time they had an outage, but if we get a few more people. I mean, if anyone had Amazon CloudFront, you've recently had an outage. In Microsoft Azure, Cloudflare, you've had an outage. Really, I can name almost every single, since we monitor all the CDN services, we kind of see them. But this is actually good to know, to see what people believe they're experiencing. How do you even know you had an outage? Do you wait till users tell you, or are you monitoring it? All right. So of the people online right now, most believe they've never had an outage with a CDN service, right? So that's an interesting fact to know. So if you have to think about other reasons why you might not know that, maybe you picked a great CDN provider, or maybe you're just not aware of it. 14% did say they had an outage, right? So that's going to be important to know as well. So we're all having different reasons, and that's actually a little shocking to me. I was expecting a few more to admit they had an outage, but that's fine. We'll continue and talk about some other pieces we have to the puzzle. And so when you're talking about CDN services, not all are created equal, right? They all have regional strengths and weaknesses, right? Some CDNs work better in different parts of the world, just based upon where they're strong, right? If you have international users, for instance, and if you wanted strong CDN services in China, you may pick a CDN provider that's just in China, right? That just buys from CTCU, China Telecom, China Unicom, right? And just really focuses on that market. And you might not choose a global CDN provider in that region. And there may be regional providers in Africa, regional providers in South America. Sometimes the regional providers that are strong in the United States and Europe are not strong everywhere else. So that's one thing to know. A price mistake, right? Not all CDNs are the same quality. And just because you pay the most amount of money for your CDN does not mean it's the best, right? Just like in DNS services, right? We have clients that move from our competitors, and they're sometimes paying $65,000 a year for DNS. And sometimes they switch to DNS Made Easier, Constellix, and they're paying $60 or less. So price does not matter performance, right? Price does not matter for uptime. That's just a price tag. Network strength. Some CDNs work better against different networks than others. And this is something that goes down to what's called peering, right? So every single large data facility and every single large CDN provider and every single large multi-carrier neutral data facility has pairing points. And this is the place where all the different big networks talk to each other and they hand network off, right? And so CDNs, their whole purpose is trying to get as close to the eyeball as possible. They want to get close to the end user. They want to be reaching that person in their house right now, especially now with this whole crisis going on and this pandemic, right? Their whole point is we want to make sure that we can serve those end users faster than everyone else. So they're talking about how can I get data to them? Where can, if these lines of these bandwidth lines are saturated, I have to go to another route to make sure I get them that traffic. So they either try to pair that traffic as close to the end user as possible, right? And that is a big thing about network strength and an ability to adjust, right? Adjusting times, things are changing, right? The world is changing. It is so much harder now to even service data facilities. We have thousands of name servers around the world. I know for us individually, it's so much harder to get staff into the facilities to actually service the equipment, to upgrade routers. We did several upgrades of routers and we're expanding in a couple POPs right now. And it's just significantly delaying the process with this whole pandemic. So how do you adjust to this change, right? How do you adjust to everything going on? And so the issues that people have when doing a single CDN solution is that every single customer is unique, right? So if you're a company that really has a lot of users in Europe, that's a unique requirement to someone that has a lot of users in the United States. If you have a lot of users in Latin America, that's a unique requirement. Where your users are located is a unique requirement. What network your users are on is a unique requirement, right? A single point of failure, right? Every CDN solution out there, if you're putting everything on one CDN, it is your one single point of failure. And you now have to rely on everything, on their being up or them being down to serve your data, right? When Cloudflare had their outages last June, and Amazon has outages, and Microsoft, and everyone has their regional outages, people are completely taken offline when everything goes through that CDN. And you have the localized outages as well. And then you have threats, right? You have something going on that happens that can bring your whole entire network down, that can bring the whole entire CDN down. It could be a DDoS attack. It could be a bad code release, something that can cause an outage to their end users, which is you, which then causes an outage to your end users, right? And so those are all the issues with the CDN solution. In the multi-CDN that we're going to talk about, it's a best of breed approach for your location and your network, right? So we're going to allow you to take advantage of the most reliable CDN in each region. If this CDN is super strong in Europe, let's use it in Europe, but let's not use them everywhere else, right? But let's take the most cost-effective solution, right? You can pick a real expensive CDN and you can get a real cheap CDN underneath it, not cheap like in cheap quality, but just cheaper in cost. And you could offload that traffic where they're actually faster than the more expensive guy. They may not have as much traffic, but we've had use cases now in users where they're spending $60,000, $65,000 a month for one CDN. And by spending $10,000 in another CDN, they're dropping the cost of their more expensive CDN in half, right? So you're saving $30,000 here, spending $10,000 here. You're saving $20,000 a month. $20,000 a month might not seem a lot to a lot of the people we have on the phone call today, but think about it over a year span where it's $250,000. Now think of that over a 4-year span. You're not talking $1 million, right? And that's how most IT people are kind of, you're not just going day by day. Over a 4-year plan, you're going to save your current costs, $1 million, and that's with no growth. That's if your company's not growing. Imagine if it's growing and you're actually going to be expanding those needs. And then we got diversification of your CDN. It's very, very risky to put everything under the one single point of failure. So diversification of your CDN is known in the industry to be less risky as already. All right, and so now we're going to talk about why CDN is a smart choice, right? We're going to remove the single point of failure. It's 24/7, always best, right? No matter when it is, we're going to be monitoring your performance, and we're going to be determining when it's actually the best performance for your users and your clients, right? We're going to leverage the regionality of CDNs, right? We're going to pick the fastest provider regionally, always giving users the top performance they deserve, and then we're going to lower your costs. It's a myth. It's a ridiculous myth that a lot of people tell you that once you start going multi-cloud or multi-CDN, it's actually more expensive. That's not true. We're actually going to break that apart right now, because if you think about it, most CDNs charge on usage, right? If your usage drops, you're going to pay, you're going to have a minimum. You always have a minimum rate, and you have economies of scale. But if you talk about overall, if you drop your usage 30% here, and if you save that on a lower cost CDN service down here, this price may not go down 30%. It may go down 27, 25%, but you're not going to be paying as much money as you are by using the two different CDN, by just having the one CDN service. You're usually going to be saving money, right? And a lot of the features required to do a multi-CDN solution, and this is where a strong DNS service comes in, are the following, right? There's one service that's called a name. We did this webinar 2-3 months ago. What's called the unique ability of doing a CNAME with a bunch of different features, right? And this is something that Constellix does really well. We developed a lot of R&D money into that to process A names properly. Monitoring an outage, right? When you send users, why would you send users to a provider that's down regionally? Maybe you don't notice it. Maybe you don't notice it because your users didn't tell you. But if your page didn't load, you're suffering something that's the most important of all, and that's called brand. If your brand suffers, you're suffering, right? People can't reach your website. They can't make that purchase. They don't believe in the value that they're supposed to be going to. And we also want to monitor on performance. You don't want to just choose CDNs if it's going to be slower, right? And that's why a multi-CDN solution, unless it's monitored properly, isn't going to provide you good value. And we're going to talk about that and how we provide that. And based upon the time, I'm going to have time to actually throw in some, let me check on some questions over here. I'm going to have time to do a quick demo, and I want to try to set this up real quickly. So I think that's a good bet. So the Constellix A name, like I'm saying, we talked about this a couple months ago. It gives you the ability to have CNAME-like ability, but we're going to respond back with the A and the quad A record, right? So you can put this on the apex of your domain. You can put it on any record type you want. We're going to do that lookup with you, for you, and then we're going to respond back with the A and quad A records. The difference between Constellix and everybody else is that we fully support ENS Client Subnet. And we do it in a really unique way that's kind of unique in the industry. It's sort of the Colonel Sanders secret recipe that we're not going to talk about, but we do it in a way that we make sure we get as much regional lookup as possible, right? We also cache that data for you, right? And so when we cache that, if the DNS provider goes down for the CDN service, we're still going to have the most updated A record or quad A record to give to your user. So there's times when some CDN services had DNS outage, we're still serving content to that DNS, to that CDN, because we knew what those A and quad A records were. And we also do those lookups locally, right? This is part of how we do the ENS client subnets so well, is that all of our lookups are done locally at each POP. We don't send them off somewhere else. We have our own custom resolving name servers that handle a lot of this. And then Constellix sonar monitoring is all based upon uptime. So we're not going to worry about sending traffic to a location if it's down, right? We're going to be selecting which agent. You're going to be able to actually choose which agents you want to monitor from, where you want to monitor, and how you want to make those decisions. And then, as with DNS Made Easy and Constellix, we do immediate failover. So that gives you a solution where if your DNS decision takes a long time to get updated, what's the purpose of it, right? You want a service that can make a change super fast. And that's something that DNS Made Easy and Constellix are known to be industry leaders in. When you put it at the change through, it propagates throughout our thousands of name servers we have in our network almost immediately. And then on top of the monitoring, we have what's called internet traffic optimization. And so what internet traffic optimization is it allows you to use the best performing CDNs regionally, right? You use these agents, and these monitoring agents are placed all around the world, and you can choose which ones you want to. And it's going to then do this monitoring and then determine this one's faster here. And this is also, some people call it traffic steering. It's been known in the industry. But we provide a real easy solution to get the internet traffic optimization configured fast. We call it ITO. And the reason why we call it ITO is because the next one is called RUM ITO. And it was too much to say real user monitoring with traffic steering or RUM and whatever. So we said RUM ITO and ITO. And so real user monitoring, we're now going to take the data of your end users and we're going to make a decision based upon that. So what I want to do real quickly is I'm going to set up a browser. And I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like. All right, let me bring my screen over here. And if any of you have been to my demonstrations before, webinars before, if you have any demos with us, if I've been able and been lucky enough to sit in with you and show you the features, you've kind of seen some of these features before. But what I want to talk about is we're now going to set up a CDN. We're going to actually create two multi-CDN configurations. And what I've done is I created, earlier today, I created a couple of CDNs on StackPath and a couple of CDNs on Fastly. And I figured this would be a good time for us to kind of push this through the whole entire system. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go to my multi-CDN configuration, and I'm going to show you what it does in the background. And the reason why we have this, it's called beta on this because it's just we want trying to change the screens up a little bit, but the functionality is there. And we're saying we have hundreds of people using this already. And so what I wanted to show you is I'm going to get the tool do all the work for me, and then I'll show you in the background what it's doing. I think that's probably the best reason. So I'm going to create a new CDN resource, And I have 2 pages here, and I'll show you what they are. They are they're a garden page and they're a camp page. I took these free to download templates and I threw them up. So what I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this my garden CDN. And this is eventually going to go to garden.cdn.com, server.us. And this is going to be live so everyone else can test it at the same point. And now what I want to do with this one is I'm just going to do synthetic checks. And this is really our ITO. This is not our RUM ITO. We're not going to use the RUM data. So we're going to be using our monitoring agents that we have within Sonar. And we have a piece here where we'll automatically provision your CDN services. We only have that for limited providers right now. What I'm going to do, since I already have it configured, I'm just going to configure these right here. So I'm going to say StackPath has this, and I'm going to take the URL that StackPath gave me. And I can show you that, and it's not, well, I don't need to go into StackPath's website. But what I'm going to do now is give the URL they provided me, and I'm going to put it in here. And then I'm also going to compare them with Fastly. I'm going to put them in here. And if you do Fastly HTTPS, I think it's always the same URL actually. So I'm going to put those in, and that's it. All I'm going to say is, okay, I have this CDN at this host name. This is the host name they gave me, and this is the second CDN I have. And what these are right here are called, what I have configured in here are my community providers. Now, community providers means these are also services that Constellix is hosting various pictures on. And so we're gathering all these results and we're able to share that with the rest of the Constellix community because we validate it, we get rid of everything. And we're going to be adding a bunch more providers in there. If there's any customers that have other CDN services that you'd want to add us in community, let us know. We then reach out to the CDN service and we validate that they'll host the picture for us. If not, you can always add your own CDN provider. We have our own way to, and you see here Cloudflare. We can add them as their own custom provider. So I'm going to save this one as my multi-CDN configuration. And now I'm going to create another one, but this time I want to use the RUM data. And the RUM data, I'm going to show you exactly how that's configured in a second. Make sure, which one did I just configure? I did the garden one. So I'm going to create another one. And this is going to be a camp CDN. And I'm going to call this camp.server. Make sure I can spell it right. All right. And same thing here. I'm going to choose StackPath, and I'm going to use Fastly. And I want to, this right here is just my monitoring, and we're going to go into Constellix Sonar in a second and see the exact FQDNs that they have. Have this in here, right? And so now in this one, I also get more options. I'm going to be able to choose how often I want my RUM data to be updated, and I'm going to explain what that does in a second and how we gather all this data and how we're choosing which CDN is faster where, from which region, from what user, from all that different information. And I'm going to choose how large of an IP rule filter list I want to build. And this is an important part right here, is where do I want to gather my data on. Now, because it's a brand new thing I just set up, it's not going to be giving me a lot of data, so I'm going to use my community data, which is the reason why I'm using community providers. If I wanted to do something unique to my users, I could only use my account data. That means I'm only going to base my decisions based upon my individual users. I'm not going to use it based upon the hundreds of thousands of data points that Constellix gets every single minute based upon the other users we have using our platform. So that's something that's really unique that we do in the industry, is how we actually do the RUM data. Number one, we do it, and if you mentioned in one of those slides, you saw it was time to last byte, right? Time to last bit, actually, which is really, really important, because that's when your page is done loading. It's how fast all these assets come in, and we're measuring performance when the page shows up and the data is downloaded. A lot of the multi-CDN solutions out there, they're actually timed to first bit, which really makes no practical sense whatever. That means a network engineer kind of designed your requirements, someone that didn't understand content and didn't understand marketing and didn't understand site visibility, right? Network engineers, all they care about is getting the data, right? Connecting to that location. But it's not how you should measure performance of the CDN. So if you're one of our competitors, shame on you, because I know that some of our competitors are watching this webinar right now. So that's one thing that Constellix does a lot differently, which I think is a big indication. And now I'm going to open up another window. Yeah, let me, because I think I got timed out. I'm going to log in real quickly. And I'm going to log into the Sonar application. And what we're going to see now is all the stuff that's being created in the background. Now, this is stuff that you could obviously create yourself, but the reason why we actually do this tool is because it's actually much easier. And I got to figure out why these are actually showing up as, let me go to my garden, my camp one. And so what this actually put in here, this is my host name. And this is my advanced. And then if I run my check, it's giving me a bad status code. So maybe I put in something incorrectly. Let me just go in to my Fastly is giving me a 500, so I can't use it. Maybe it's, let me see if I can clean that up. It's not going to help me if I don't have the right CDN's working, but I'm going to show the other one first. All right, so the camp one's actually still going online. Let me actually. Yeah, my garden one showed up, but maybe I didn't configure my other one appropriately. I might have to go in and actually clean that up. Let me try it again. It's still pending with fast. All right, so what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to show the garden one real quickly. And you see with this one, I did the synthetic check. So what that actually means, and actually I'm now going to configure that into my domain so we can actually see it work in real time. And I'm going to do my CDN provisioning. I'm going to do my garden. I'm just going to call it garden. I'm going to give it a short TTL of 180 seconds. Apply. And I'm going to commit this change. If you haven't used Constellix before, we do have a change management system. We actually store all the versions of your domain. You can roll back at any time. We allow you to take snapshots of your domain. We allow for multi-user access. You can have a commit-only person, a person that does the read-write, the person that does just the read and writes the requirements. So your full ISO 27001 and everything else. And what I want to show you real quickly here is inside of these checks that were created, you can say that, look, there is a North America West. Let me try to find North America West for stack path. And if you look at the configurations, it's only monitoring on regions within North America. And you can go in and you can modify these. The system will automatically create these for you so we can verify that everything's working properly, right? And it's kind of all set up properly. And what we've done is, and for every region where we have name servers around the world, we're actually creating multiple locations. So you look at North America East, you're going to see this. And then it's also monitoring all the regions in there. Right, and so what this is now doing is that we're going to create a bunch of checks regionally that you can then go in and modify. You can change the frequency and everything else, but we're going to have a regional check for every single one of your CDNs that you created. So we created 2 CDNs, and you see there's a whole list of checks now being created for it. And what that then does, when we go into the regions of where our name servers are located, and if I look at, we're now using what's called a pool. And if I look at my pool, let's bring up my pool real quickly. In North America East, right? And so what we're doing in the pool is we're going to say, okay, here's stack path and here's Fastly, right? And we're monitoring based on those monitoring points. So we're going to say we're going to update this every 30 seconds. And then it's averaging the speed that we're getting from the Sonar monitoring services. So we're saying we're averaging 305.5 milliseconds here. And in Fastly, it's doing it on 420.5 milliseconds. If I do the same thing in Europe, oops, that's actually the wrong one, the garden in Europe, you're going to notice that over here, Fastly, right? It's 374.5 milliseconds, and stack path is averaging 1,128 milliseconds, right? These are the exact same measurements that you're going to get when you actually go into your check. So if I look at Fastly in Europe, and if I look at the measurement performance, you're going to see that it's actually going to be measuring the performance based on the exact same thing. You can actually measure the performance and see how everything's working. You can see the raw data. We give you the visual trace routes. We give you everything you need to do to make that distinction and make that that update. So, and this is then going to be updated automatically whenever the sonar monitoring changes. We're going to then monitor and update DNS, right? And that's done with what we call pools. So in every single region, you have your DNS configuration. Let me go in there. And we look at US East, right? So US East is actually using the US East pool, right? The North America East pool, right? And in North America West, it's actually using the North America West pool, right? With inside each pool, right? So you have 137 milliseconds, 286. With inside each pool, we also have failover configured. So if Fastly right now is preferred, if it does go down, the traffic is going to go to the next CDN provider, right? And you can have as many CDN providers as you want. Most of our users are using 2, some are using 3. In our tests, we obviously have 5, 6, or 7, but most people only usually have 2 or 3 providers. Sometimes the clients that are having the 3 to 4, those are the ones that'll have a separate provider just in one particular region that's really strong, right? They'll have that, they're a global presence, they're getting hundreds of thousands of hits a second. They need real strong performance in China, right? And they're worth adding another CDN provider just for China. Or they're having a real strong preference for users in Latin America, right? And they're gonna prefer to get data down there. So this then configuration is then carried forward. And so now if I was to go into my, to see that data, if I set up the CDN correctly, I'm now gonna load that data. And if anyone who's still on the call, if you go to that website, you're gonna notice it automatically gets hosted by either StackPath or Fastly. It's gonna depend based upon where you are regionally. Now, the one step above this is what I'm gonna go through right now. And I'm gonna create the multi-CDN, okay, and it did go through. I'm gonna make sure I get those monitoring, okay. I just gotta, I'm gonna redo those real quickly. Because if they're both down, it's not gonna really make a difference for me. So let me go in there. And let me delete these. We keep the checks around just for historical data. We do pause them all, but we do keep them for historical reasons in case you want the data and you can compare them. So let me just clean this out. And maybe I didn't configure the properly. So I'm gonna give it one more quick run around. So I don't wanna waste your time. I can always show it through another way. And let me create a new CDN resource. I'm gonna call this my camp CDN. I'm gonna call it camp.server.us. Maybe I misspelled that. Could be. I don't know where I misspelled it. Sometimes you're on a demo. Fastly HTTPS. Getting a 500 error with the provider, so I'm guessing I might have misspelled something. And I'm gonna do rum just to keep it. I'm gonna use community data just so I can gather the data from all the rest of the users. And this is gonna be set up. But what this is pretty much gonna do now is what we provide is you now have a, if you look at this one that's set up, we're going to give you a JavaScript. And this JavaScript would then sit inside your website, all right? And then once it's inside your website, it's going to then say, okay, grab me an asset from this provider, grab me an asset from this provider, and then tell me how long it took me to download that asset, right? Once again, we're doing time to last byte, not doing time to first byte. Time to first bit is what some of the competitors currently do. So by doing that, we're going to say this is how long it's taking to download the data, and we're going to know where the client is. We're going to make that distinction, and so we can direct that user. So I'm going to show it all go through. Let me go back into Sonar. I got my RUM configured. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show it to you on another one. There it is, and everything. I think I might have misspelled the FQDN. So when I was asking for an FQDN that didn't exist, I was getting an error message, which makes sense. So you can see all of these are coming up online, and these also are all configured the exact same way, right? So it's automatically configuring in Europe. It said for Europe regionally, give me all the checks in region in Europe. Once again, these are called synthetic checks. These are our agents that we have configured all around the world through different providers, right? This data goes into our pools, right? And these are the pools, and you can tell right here, it's not been configured yet. So I'm going to go in and actually configure that right now real quickly so we can see some of those messages going away. And I'm going to say, okay, now I want to do the CDN provisioning, and I'm going to choose my camp CDN. It's going to go to camp, and I'm going to do a nice short TTL here of 60 seconds, and I'm going to apply this, right? And I'm just going to push it through, and then I'm going to explain what it did in 1 second, which is kind of the cool stuff, right? These are the Colonel Sanders secret ingredients that no one wants to talk about. If we look back in our Sonar, everything should be up or new, or it's being configured. It's setting up its whole system, so we're going to be monitoring automatically. We're determining it. Everything's up now. So you're going to tell that, okay, you know, North America East, Fastly, we're doing so many checks per day that we're going to consistently keep checking to make sure that your CDN is up. Once again, if your CDN's, if someone else's service with that CDN provider is up, does not mean that your CDN services are up. So we always want to check that your CDN service is up and gives you the best submission. So what we have is the same thing here. We have our pools. You can tell now we have our camp pools, right? We have one for each region. Within each region, we're pulling the data down. I didn't pull the data down yet because I just turned it online at the domain just 10 seconds ago. Every 30 seconds, it's going to pull the data in. Now, one thing we're doing additionally, like I'm saying, we have these scripts that just script you install on your website. It's going to download these assets. You can actually see it in production. If you go to DNS Made Easy, we have it on our site, of course. If I do an inspect, and if I look at my performance or you see that the little RUM pics are being downloaded. And these RUM pics are a real user monitoring. It's a little picture, and we're going to download the same picture from these different CDN providers. And that's actually, we're one of the sources, but we have now hundreds of sites that are actually feeding the community data. I checked last hour, we had over 60,000 community events per minute. So we're actually getting a lot of community data and finding out. This data goes into, if you look at just for the run.server.us one, which I'm going to show right now, it shows you, and this is just another one that we have, which is called run.server. And this one's actually working with Amazon CloudFront, and it's working with Fastly as a test case. And so with this one, we're actually showing you all of the measurements, where the country is, and you can actually see your CDN results that's actually loading. So this page is actually being posted on a couple places. We have people serving this content. So and you can actually download this data. So you can actually take this CDN data and you can give it to your CDN company and say, listen, you're supposed to be the fastest, right? Why are you so much slower? Like, work with me. What's your SLA? Give me some credit back. And we have clients that have done that with this data as well, which is really great. But this data is now giving all these the analytics to our Sonar system, which then goes to our DNS system. And we put that in something what's called an IP filter. And so if I look at the IP filters, let me go to the ones that I just created for CAMP. These are the CAMP ones. And it's going to say, all right, for Fastly in North America East, let's look at it. And it's automatically then going to come up with a list of where Fastly is preferred based upon the most number of networks it has that it prefers it. Now, if it doesn't have the overall state, it's going to say what network on it is faster to use Fastly. So between Fastly and StackPath, right, Illinois wasn't faster to use Fastly. So StackPath is going to have Illinois listed, but then there's some networks overall in Illinois that are faster. So this is where you get that service where you can say, okay, you know, if I'm on my Sprint cell phone, it's faster to use this CDN provider. And if I'm on my Verizon cell phone or AT&T cell phone, it's faster to use this CDN provider. Same thing. If I'm at home, if I'm on Comcast, I'm getting this speed, it's faster. And these measurements are done every 2 minutes. We're constantly taking the last 2 minutes, putting it all together, getting rid of anomalies, right? We had a great webinar 2-3 weeks ago about anomaly detection that we use for DNS traffic. We use the exact same algorithms and anomalies we put in here. So we're doing record-breaking machine learning, artificial intelligence, determine which traffic is bad, which traffic is good, throw it out, take it, and then we took it. I mean, saying, what's the last 2 minutes? Because that's the stuff we really care about the most. What's the most accurate 2 minutes? But if no one visited this CDN provider, right, in the last 2 minutes, well, I'll take data from 3 or 4 minutes, but it's not as important as the stuff from 1 to 2 minutes, and 5 to 6, and you know, and 7 to 8, and we go up to actually 30 minutes in length, but it's worth less and less to us. The most current data is worth the most to us, and that's what we found through years of testing this algorithms out. So you can tell here, we're actually building a list up automatically of what networks are faster from what regions in order to serve to which CDN provider. And so if I was to go into Europe, for instance, I'm going to have a completely different IP filter list, right? You're going to see here Fastly has all these. And if I go to StackPath in Europe, right, I get all these countries. I get a lot more regional ones as well, right? In Germany, ASN 6805. And I apologize, I'm not a ASN 60 as Telefonica Germany, right? I don't know all my ASNs like some of the network engineers or some of the network engineers that work for us would. So this would automatically, and it's making these decisions in real time based upon your real end users. Now I'm using community data, so I'm using the data from all the rest of the users, but you can actually make the decisions based upon your end users. And that's really the power of multi-CDN, right? You can make decisions. So we're one of the very few companies that actually offer anything like this. And we do it the best because we're actually, and this is, look, the data is loading up immediately, right? So I'm going to camp.server.us. And if I actually was to, let me actually show my screen. Let me bring a little wood here, right? So if I go to camp.server.us, right, I'm hitting Fastly. And let's see if where I am on Garden. Right, that one's using the monitoring agent, right? So overall, for the monitoring agents, it's using StackPath. But if I actually looked at the real end user metrics, which one's the real fastest for my users, Garden would also be using Fastly. Apologize, I hit my mic. Garden would also be using Fastly because that's based upon that. And if I wanted to add another CDN provider, that's easy just as well, right? You just go in there and you add another CDN provider, you remove CDN providers, you can constantly make differences. Other great features that we have, and I'm running out of time, I do apologize. I spent like 5 minutes redoing that one configuration when I did a typo. But other configurations we have in here as well is we allow you to do handicaps. And so if you had a real expensive CDN provider and you're like, listen, he is so darn expensive, I'm going broke. You can actually say, okay, only if he's 100 milliseconds faster do I think it's worth it for me. For my users, or from my personal experience, my users won't care if it's 100 milliseconds slower. So you can actually do a speed, or you can do a percent. You can say it has to be 20% slower, 20% faster. Yeah, so what we're doing, adding 20%, this would actually add 20% to all the Fastly speeds to make them less preferred in those regions. Or you can add 20% to StackPath, or you could do a negative 20% or a negative speed, whatever you want to do. The handicap adds to it. So if you do a negative handicap, then it's actually going to lower the speeds for Fastly. So we have that as well. So we have the handicap features, we got the RUM data, we got the agent monitoring, we got all those sort of configurations. You know, you can always, and if you look at the different configurations we'll have actually now within server.us, you're actually going to be an expert at this point. you're going to see that for CAMP, right, if it matches the stack path filter, then you're going to serve stack path. If it matches the Fastly filter, you're going to use Fastly. And if it doesn't match any of those filters, then we're going to use the user agents, right? We're actually going to use the what some people call traffic steering, what we call ITO, Internet Traffic Optimization, right? So ITO is just doing it based upon monitoring agents. ITO is doing it based upon the end user's data, and then we use with the use of filters, and they work hand in hand. They work together. That's why we call one ITO and one ITO, and that's what kind of accomplishes everything. And then all that data then goes into our analytics engines, and we then serve that users for that content for your users' data. So what I have time for now, let me go back into my my presentation here. I know I almost took up the whole hour, and a lot of that was doing a demo, but do you have any questions? Okay, so someone had a real good good question here. I'm going to start over here and said, after the Dyn incidents a few years ago, you said it was best practice to use multiple DNS providers, but the solution requires a single DNS provider. Isn't that? Okay, actually the solution doesn't require a single DNS provider. There are several other providers out there that do something similar to us. We all kind of do it differently. I think we do it the best, just for some reasons I talked about, time to first bit, time to last bit, but there are other providers out there that do that. So what you'd have to do is, if you wanted to do multi-CDN, right, what you would do is you would do a master-master scenario, where they would do their multi-CDN, we would do multi-CDN, and you'd both have that configuration. Once again, I don't believe anyone should have a single point of failure, right? I said, if you're gonna pick my personal opinion is, if you're gonna pick a DNS company, you wanna pick one with the highest uptime, with the highest, the best network redundancy, the largest network. And if you're going to specialize in DNS, that's what you do. That's why I always recommend, if you're going to pick one, you might as well pick DNS Made or Constellix, but I'm also biased, right? But if you want to look at pairing DB or anything like that, you see the size of our network compared to everyone else. It's not even close when you're talking about authoritative DNS providers. But you always should have redundancy. And so even with this, I do think redundancy is important, even with the DNS provider. But CDN redundancy is a much easier solution. It honestly took me 3 minutes, took me an extra 3 minutes because I made a mistake. So it should be really easy. So one guy said, would point to a pool as a generic and then would route to the fastest. So yeah, everything inside of garden.server.us is now pointing to one CDN or another. Within UAs, does conflict. Okay, so you want to talk about which CDN, one user's asking, and I'm skipping a bunch, but one user's asking, how is CloudFront versus Cloudflare versus Akamai? That's a good question. We can actually do, I can actually put CloudFront and Akamai on there real quickly, but that's something that we're actually going to be, instead of me answering that, we're going to be putting up a public page that lists all the different CDN providers and lists what our users are seeing as the fastest. And we're going to provide you to get analytics to say, okay, on Sprint right now, where is Akamai going to be faster, or where is this going to be faster? We're going to give those analytics to our users. We're building those out right now. I did have a typo, thank you. Is that okay? So multi-CDN services. So there are some companies that just specialize in multi-CDN. The problem is they kind of they break away the advantages of doing it yourself and getting the best price performance. So there are companies that will do multi-CDN. Some of them use our DNS services, and some of them we actually power. I'm showing you how to do it as if you wanted to do it on your own. So you would create an account on StackPath, you create an account in Fastly, you create an account in Amazon, you create an account in KeyCDN. We have CDN 77 was also one of our community providers. These are all customers that often use us. And so you just create an account. It could be anywhere from $10 to $20 a month you can have 2 or 3 $20 a month providers, and you can outperform a provider that's going to charge you $1,000, right? And so that's what we're actually adding CashFly, just so you know. CashFly is a real popular CDN provider. They're going to be one of our community providers really soon too. And so can you use Cloudflare as a secondary DNS? That is something you're going to need to talk to Cloudflare about, right? So that's something I'm not going to get involved with. I don't want to put down anyone about based upon features and functionality and vendor lock-in. So anyone that wants to use Cloudflare as a secondary DNS provider, you're going to have to look into that. What you want to look into, if you're looking to do multi-CDN, you actually want to look at companies that have similar features and products. You want to make sure it's not cost prohibitive. As you know, everything in DNS Made Easy, Constellix, we really try to give you the best value possible, right? And I say it again, and I'll say it over and over again. If we're not providing you value, we're not giving you cost savings, we're not reducing stress out of your life, we're not increasing your uptime, if we're not making your life easier, we serve no purpose. And that should be any service provider you guys use. And I say this, right? You never should be signed to a long-term contract, right? You look at Constellix, Constellix is month to month to month. We could do multi-year commits, I always tell people, but we're not going to lock you in because we want to earn your business month after month. And any DNS provider that wants to do a 1 to 2 or 3 year contract, you know they have no interest in bettering their services after you sign the contract. And that's that. So there's a bunch of other questions coming in now. I apologize. I did take a full hour of your time, and I want to thank everybody. I do really appreciate it to give me the ability to show you the products that we're working on. More importantly, I want everyone to make sure that you please stay safe, please stay healthy. We look forward to serving your DNS needs. We look forward to serving you. If you have any questions or if you need to contact us, you can send an email to sales. That's supposed to say constellix.com. It's not, it's my mistype, it's a typo. And you want to go to support.constellix.com. And so I do apologize for a couple of the mistakes I made, one right there and one I made during the webinar. But I want to thank you all very much. Once again, my name is Stephen Job. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can. Just please send me a message on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is down there at the bottom, just stephenjob.com. You could connect with me and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have. But once again, thank you all very much. You have a very healthy and safe rest of your afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you may be. And we look forward to working with you. Once again, have a great day. Thank you.